Again, today, it's a pleasure and a privilege to introduce our speakers of the afternoon. The subject of dolphins, their tremendous intelligence, their abilities and gifts have been a subject of a lot of interest to a lot of you over the last very few years, when it seems to have become a real hot topic. Steve McGruder has been swimming and communicating with dolphins for quite a while, 20 years or better, before it became, really popular. The one thing that always intrigues me about him, he swam with them where the water is cold, like England and Wales and France and those places. So we won't give Steve too much credit for super intelligence, but at least he has got a what I think you'll find is a fascinating story about his experience in the dolphin world and how it's helped him. Welcome, Steve McGruder, a first-time speaker with us here today.
Welcome to those who believe that I'm not of superhuman intelligence. I'm certainly one to support that view. How's everybody feeling out there? Well, I almost have my voice back after going through an exercise in an acting class on Monday night. Thanks to this lavalier mic, I hope you'll have no trouble hearing me. I know after lunch there's a degree of lassitude that exists amongst the group, but with Dolphin energy, which is high energy, we will hopefully keep everybody awake. Now, how many of you have had interesting contacts with dolphins? Okay, that's about 15–20% of the group. How many of you have actually physically touched dolphins? Very good. Many people have remarkable dolphin tales, and I'm going to give you a number, many of which are directly mine and some related to people that I've worked and played with over the years. But unlike the previous speaker, I think that most of you don't know me very well, so it's necessary for me to give some personal background, so you literally know where I'm coming from. Now, this time I'm originally from Philadelphia, and contrary to what we were taught in school, or maybe in addition to what we were taught in school, it is not only the city of brotherly love. I consider Philadelphia to be indicating that one is a lover of dolphins. Philadelphia. And in 1974, I went through professional training to be a hypnotist. My training was in conventional Western Orthodox approaches to trance, induction and deepening techniques, and so on. Shortly after that, and the training was in ethical hypnosis, by the way, shortly after that I got involved with a metaphysical or spiritual approach to trance, which took the onus away from me as being the one who knew what the subject needed to know. And by simply putting the subject in trance and giving him or her suggestions for change and self-improvement, which worked very well for some people, I realized that the awareness was within each one of us. Again, that's the metaphysical approach. And all we do with the hypnotic trance is enable people to connect with that energy. However you understand that energy to be, higher consciousness, inner consciousness, God within, spirit guide, you name it, you label it, that's what it is. It's there. And it's very easy to connect with when one is in an open, altered state. Well, my first contact with dolphins actually came about the winter of '79 and '80, when I was on a 3.5-month sojourn at the Finhorn community in northern Scotland. While there, I went through an organized program, very interesting experience, needless to say. And I also worked with many people who are interested in past life regressions, higher self contacts, and so forth. I worked with a woman from California who tuned into being a dolphin in the experience. Now, in the trance process, a person could have actually anything happen as long as they're open to whatever is going on or seems to be occurring. And when she tuned into being a dolphin, I thought this was some interesting symbolic representation of the unconscious. And like I had learned to do, I simply played along with it and enabled the person to go deeper and further into the process and to get whatever she could from it. The openness, the freedom, the exhilaration of being the dolphin. And I thought no more of it. I really thought it was a symbolic representation of something. I did not inquire as to what it could really mean. If I knew then what I subsequently learned, we would have looked into what it really meant for her. But anyway, years later, 5 years later actually, in '84, I was living in northern Germany. I've lived overseas for many years. And while there, I got a letter from a person who didn't know me, but through a mutual friend knew of the hypnotic work that I was doing. And this person said that she was living off the coast of England, near where a bottlenose dolphin was swimming on his own, away from any other dolphins of his kind, and relating to people. The dolphin had been there for some time and had been studied by a scientist and was relating to fishermen and anybody who went into the water with him. And she wanted to know, since one of the things hypnosis is as a key to psychic phenomena, is if a person could go into trance and psychically tune into the dolphin and telepathically get impressions as to why he was there, playing with people, instead of doing his thing with fish in his own pod and whatever. I was intrigued by this, so I wrote back and said, please do send me more information. She sent me a report of a documentary that the scientist she mentioned had done the previous year with another dolphin off the coast of France. So I knew this was a serious venture, and I said in a subsequent letter that I'd be willing to come out and experience the possibilities. So I hitched out there, and by the time I got there, she was gone, but the dolphin was still there. And I had the opportunity to go out in a small boat with a man, a fisherman, who knew the dolphin very well and generally related to him each day, and a reporter and a photographer from the Daily Mirror, which was a popular paper in England, probably still is, a bit tabloidish, but many people read it. And the reporter had done an article on this dolphin who was called Percy the previous year. So this was a follow-up article. So I sat in a boat for about 45 minutes while this reporter in a wetsuit just stayed in the water with the dolphin, and the photographer took pictures from the boat and so forth. And then I slipped over the side in nothing but a bathing suit. And of course, as Dean was indicating, it was very, very cold. And I had 10 minutes in the water with this dolphin called Percy. And it was a very subdued experience, I might say. The water was calm. Again, it was cold, but I was very much in contact with this dolphin who was simply there in front of me. Not much happened. Maybe 3 or 4 times he came up with a closed mouth and he touched me in different parts of my body. Now, if I, again, knew then what I know now, I would have been very aware as to where specifically he touched me, because whatever a dolphin does, I've learned, has some significance. So that was it. Not much to speak about, but I had my first contact with a dolphin, a wild dolphin, and it was interesting. So when I got back to Germany, I started to work with people who were open to the possibility of psychically connecting with this dolphin to telepathically get impressions as to why he was there. Well, it became very apparent why he was there. After making initial contacts with Percy, with an individual in trance, he would simply somehow psychically read the individual and very directly, giving people impressions on his own, not through me in any way, he would communicate to people what they seemed to need to know in the trance process, depending on what they were working on and depending on what they were interested in. Now, this pattern continued with the initial Percy sessions, to the point it wasn't even of concern or interest as to why Percy was there. It was obvious. He was serving as an inner teacher and an inner guide. All I had to do, which I did over a period of time, was to lose my reticence and saying to people, hey, I know this dolphin, and if you're interested in connecting with him in trance, maybe he can tell you some things about yourself. I was hesitant to make these offers to people in the beginning, but he became so effective that after a while, a third of my sessions involved Percy, in addition to all the other higher energies we were working with, and then more and more and more. And so now it's very unusual for me to work with anybody in trance where Percy does not play an active part. Now, this is in individual sessions, which I basically specialize in, or in group processes, because Percy has a way of meeting people on their own level and connecting with them very individually, whether in a group or on a one-to-one basis. Before I get more into the session work, which is the meat of the experience and the discussion here today, and there will be time for questions later, by the way, I want to talk about another experience that I had with a dolphin called Simo, S-I-M-O, off the coast of Wales, the year after I met Percy. So this was 1985. Because that, to this day, has proven to be the most meaningful physical experience I've had with a dolphin. Although I've swum with wild ones off of France, Ireland, in Italy, subsequent to SEMO. But my ventures with SEMO took place over a 3-day period, 4 swims of a half-hour piece. Now, SEMO had been there on his own for months prior to my arrival. I was in the Dolphin network at the time, and I knew that he was there, so I went out with the intention of connecting with him. We hired a boat, and we went out to where SEMO would come, where the boat would be on a daily basis to meet with the swimmers. And as is my way, I sat back and watched other people go into the water. There were 4 or 5 other people in the water at the time, playing with SEMO, and SEMO was going back and forth and having all kinds of contact with everybody, as I said, meeting them on their own level. If people were a bit shy in the water or not so open and a good swimmer, then the Dolphin would be very gentle and caring. If people were a bit rambunctious or whatnot, the Dolphin would be more active. If a person, as one individual did, had a bit of a superiority complex, the Dolphin would teach him a lesson and whack them with a tail. Nothing serious, but again, there was something of meaning in it. So after people got tired and cold, then I slipped out into the water. The rest of the people came back into the boat and then watched and took pictures and so forth. Thus, I had the opportunity of a one-to-one connection with SEMO. Again, I did this on 4 separate occasions. I stayed in the water a half-hour apiece each time. If I stayed in longer than that, with nothing but a bathing suit on, although I had opportunity to wear a wetsuit, I chose to maximize the skin contact with the Dolphin. If I stayed in longer than a half hour, I could easily become hypothermic. And indeed, for an hour and a half after coming out each time, I shook for an hour and a half. But it was worth it. Much of the experience was not just getting involved in the cold water, it was the connection with the Dolphin. Now this time, compared to Percy, it was an exceptionally intimate experience. First of all, SEMO was, needless to say, an adept swimmer. I'm a scuba diver, a good swimmer, whatnot, but I have no ability compared to SEMO in his native marine element. On 1 or 2 of the swims, I wore fins. I always wore a mask so I could see underwater. The fins were a bit cumbersome because we were doing close moving around work. And Mark, if you'll be kind enough to show the pictures, we've got some visuals here for you. And Mark has some good special effects which he will illustrate. If I stayed in contact with SEMO the way I wanted to, we would be swimming around hyperactively pretty much all the time. So here you see the coastline. This is SEMO pointing down. I hope it's coming out fairly clearly. Is that okay with the light there, Mark? Do you want to keep? Yeah, the light's all right? Okay. So you got the coastline, you got the Dolphin coming down, if that's clear to everyone. I'm one of the other Dolphin characters in the back. So there's more than one Dolphin in the water. And we can go to the next one. The next pictures just show the connection that occurred. You can keep them on for about 15 seconds apiece, if you will. This is when I had hair, by the way, for those of you who didn't know me then. Yeah. Sure, I beg your pardon. And so it's just reaching out from the boat, touching the Dolphin initially, and then actually going into the water with the Dolphin. And that's when the adventure began. Now, I don't know whether he was signaling me it's okay to come over and play, but this was my real first encounter with a Dolphin who was about 10 feet long, between 400 and 500 pounds. We had a marine biologist there with us at the time, and by looking at the conical teeth of the Dolphin, the biologist could tell that the Dolphin was about 5 or 6 years of age. Now, SEMO was very active. And as an aggressive swimmer myself and trying to keep warm, we did a lot of playing, what you might call tag. I would hold on to his dorsal fin, and we would take off. I was a little too large to sit on his back like the boy in the Dolphin and be given a Dolphin ride in that regard. But holding on to the dorsal fin with one hand, normally my right hand, I could go for a reasonably long period, just being pulled with his enormous power and strength. And then going down into the water, just holding on to the Dolphin. I'm just hanging on. This is my only muscular energy with the fist. And then coming back up again. Or if I didn't quite trust how long I'd be down, I would let go and come back up and then rejoin the Dolphin later. At one point, the Dolphin was to my left. And I was taking a very lazy Australian crawl. The Dolphin was languidly moving in his Dolphin stroke to my left, just a couple of feet away. And there was this contact with his right eye. Now, if you have looked into the eye of a cetacean, a dolphin or a whale, you've had a magical experience. And I remember that dolphin could easily have sped away, done anything he wanted. But he stayed with me for, I don't know, 50, 60 yards or so in this slow movement, as I can tune into now, even as I'm talking to you. And there was a real connection there. I can't say what was going on. But I felt that Simo was perceiving me somehow far more than I could perceive him. We know the stories of the dolphin clicks, the echolocations of what happens, the healing energies. It's real. You feel something when you're there with the dolphin. At another point, this is an underwater shot. It's not clear at the moment. Hopefully it will become more clear. Where the dolphin is on his side, we're not getting that at all clear. Can you see it better from where you are? I'm not seeing it clearly.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Then the dolphin simply come to me. And just under the surface of the water, by the way. It's interesting, I can hardly see it, but if you can see it clearly, I'm pleased. But at one point, I was moving around very fast with the dolphin, literally playing some type of tag, and I lost him. He disappeared. I had no idea where he was. I looked everywhere. He was gone. I gave up. I was starting to go back to the boat. I turned around, and there, just under the surface of the water, he was hanging vertically, looking at me. That experience itself, and the one of moving along in the water, was sufficient to say that there is a contact far beyond what I was able to consciously process that was happening. And again, it's stroking the dolphin. The dolphin loves, the dolphin meaning dolphins that I've connected with in the wild, love to be touched in a way that they cannot touch themselves or their own kind do not touch them. And the dolphins that I've connected with who've been away from their own kind love contact when they trust you. Now generally there's a transition period where they will be exposed to people for a while and then from a distance, and then they'll get closer, and some individuals have contact. With this dolphin, as long as you had an open heart and feeling, the dolphin was so acclimated to being with people, you just go up and do this sort of thing very easily. Now this dolphin and other male dolphins I swim with have a way of voluntarily extending their penis so that they use it as a tactile organ with men and with women. And if you don't have any hang-ups with that, that certainly gives the dolphin a degree of pleasure, which can be understood from any number of ways. But touching the dolphin itself, a person described it in many ways of talking about it. A person described it once as touching an inner tube underwater that has a light film of oil on it, and it's soft and it's resilient and it's warm, a warm body when you're down there. Okay, we've got one more large picture, which is my favorite. It's been blown up, so hopefully you'll see this fairly well. It's also an underwater shot with the same dolphin, Simo. Yeah, it's a bit delicate, but you're doing a good job, Mark. Appreciate it. This one pretty much encapsulates what I consider the connection to be, where there's a one-to-one communication going on. And again, it's a nonverbal process. Yeah, but there's something definitely that's happening. Can you see that? Okay, the dolphin is literally in my arm. And the point is, there's total trust. I mean, this dolphin obviously could do serious damage. How many people saw Jaws 3? Okay, I'm into movies a lot as far as special effects and so forth. And in that film, they clearly demonstrated how a dolphin can ram a shark. And the film was a great white shark. But with their echolocation, they can look inside the body of anything. They can see what you had for breakfast. But they ram the shark and the vital organs and whatnot. So the dolphin is capable of doing serious harm. But of course, when you have that feeling, you're perfectly safe. You go for the experience. At least that's what I did. Thank you, Mark. We appreciate that. Now, another interesting experience I had was in Italy, where I was traveling around for a while, and I met a sailor. And like I enjoy doing when I meet people who've been exposed to the sea, I asked him if he had any dolphin or whale tails. And he told me a number of interesting ones, but he also said, well, look, there's a dolphin who lives off the coast of Italy, 60 kilometers north of Naples. He's along the beach, and anybody can go swim with him. Well, that's all I needed. I hitched on down there and camped out on the beach that night, and the next morning I spent 4 or 5 hours walking along trying to find him. And around noontime or so, I saw a boat about 100 meters offshore with a couple men in it with oars going into the water from above. One was standing and doing something in the water, and then I saw the telltale fin. Again, this is an Italian dolphin. I didn't need to know the language, but I went there, I took off my shirt, went into the water, swam out. The water was warm, my only time with a wild dolphin in warm water, and immediately went up, touched the dorsal fin, and we went off. And I hear those guys in the boat now yelling, "Amigo Delfino, Amigo Delfino." There was a connection instantly, and we played and we had a great time. And to me, it's extremely important. As a physical being, I'm interested in moving around the planet and experiencing things physically. It's very important to have physical contact. For me, for everyone, it's not so important. For other people, it's the experiencing consciousness. And that's what I want to talk about now. Because to me, for the people I work with, the adventure in consciousness with dolphins is what has its memorable impact. Now, the way this is done very simply is with the power of the imagination of anybody that I'm working with in trance. A trance is a trance is a trance, as some people say. I agree with that. If you call it hypnosis, meditation, relaxation, the ancient science of going inside, all processes like this involve basically a twofold experience, tuning out external stimuli and tuning in to inner awareness. Now, you may have a voice working with you from without, but basically you have an inner focus. The imagination is the vehicle that the inner reality uses to communicate with what one understands as consciousness. So, when you're in a process, a relaxed experience, and you're interested in connecting with the dolphin, what I'll do is simply suggest, after you're relaxed and calm, that you are on a beach and you're going into the water and taking time with it, of course. I'm expediting it now for the process of discussing it. And that you go out and you're in a calm situation with the dolphin in front of you. And then you touch in with the dolphin by touch. You actually imagine the connection of physically touching the dolphin. It's the same thing that I do when I'm in the water, and I believe that my physical connections with the dolphin have facilitated people's psychic connection with the dolphins that they connect with in trance. Now, mostly it's the one dolphin that I work with to this day, Percy, who serves as the inner teacher and guide. He and I are essentially partners. But a person can connect with any dolphins if they've had a communication with a dolphin once in the dolphinarium or offshore somewhere and wherever it might be. That's fine. We can work with those awarenesses. It's not just Percy. It's the cetacean consciousness itself. Cetaceans, dolphins, and whales, and so forth. So once the connection is made, once the physical contact happens, then I will suggest to the person to go on a swim. Now, here's where the adventure in consciousness really begins, and the person can take off and do whatever one wants with the dolphin. Simply being open to what the dolphin will provide. They're all experts at having fun. They know how to play. So if a person will trust that, trust whatever's happening, then the experience can occur to its maximum degree. I use the acronym OAT, O-A-T. If you're open, accepting, and trusting of the experience, you'll have your process. And to this day, I've never failed with a one-to-one process, to one degree or another, for a person to connect with a dolphin. Now, it's true, if a person believes they can't learn anything or experience anything from a fish, dolphin is not a fish, but if a person has that mentality, then of course it will seriously limit their experience. But if they are open, trusting of the process, then enormous things happen. Again, Percy somehow psychically will read you and know what you need to do. Maybe you'll go on a fantasy journey. Maybe you'll go to another lifetime. Maybe some symbolic representation will happen. Maybe you're a heavy type person and you're just lost in being serious and the holy heavy, as I call it. Well, that's one way of dealing with your reality. It's not necessarily the best way. Percy may come up to you as an example. He may have on a big red hat, smoke a cigar, and have sunglasses on. Now, if that's not funny, just imagine it. So in the trance, you may start to laugh. And of course, we realize that laughter is very beneficial. It releases chemicals and hormones of a salubrious nature. And this brings about changes just on its own. It doesn't have to be a heavy cognitive process. But the key is not just to connect with Percy, which again anyone can do. It's to allow the communication to occur. Now, I worked on a psychic hotline, a couple of them actually, for close to half a year. And while there, I was helping people to come in contact with their own psychic ability, working with Percy the dolphin. Now, believe me, if you can do it on a telephone, you can do it anywhere. In fact, you can do it on your own, just by finding out about Percy by being open to it. You don't need a trance process that's being guided, although it may be easier that way. But Percy, as an example, yeah, I'll give you a good example, okay? So to understand the type of thing that can occur. Percy would be able to have you shift into an experience that says something to you that you need to know that otherwise might not come through to you with your normal everyday physical life, maybe through therapy or thinking or whatever processes of growth you're going to. An example I will give you deals with a German psychologist who, in the trance, was taken with Percy to a desert island. And Percy said, "Go ashore, you'll find what you need." He waited for her in the water. She walked ashore and she saw a young boy sitting on a log, forlornly looking out at sea. Just looking out at sea. And she came up to him and she said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm waiting for my mother." And then he turned back and continued to look out at sea. She was perplexed, confused, and she walked around, and after a while she said, "Well, look, what could I do to help you?" Now she was obviously disturbed. She was distraught that this young boy was there just looking out at sea. So I said to her, I said, because we're actually having a communication, of course, I said, "Well, why do you feel you need to do anything? Why do you feel you need to help the boy?" And she didn't answer, but after a few seconds she said, "I've got it. My lesson is, it's okay not to care. The lesson is that I give so much in my life, to my patients, to my family. I'm so available for people that I don't have time for myself. It's okay for me to let go and let other people do their own thing. Suffering is optional." Once she got that lesson, she went back into the water and continued her adventure with Percy. Another experience involves a young American that I was working with in Portugal who tuned into a very good connection with Percy. They were moving along, having a great experience, doing all kinds of frolicking and so forth. And eventually, after it calmed down a bit, I said to him, "Now, allow yourself to open up to going into the being in the body of the dolphin." I don't always say this to people, but sometimes I have a really good connection, and I'll suggest it, or it will simply happen spontaneously. The person went into the body and the being of the dolphin. He was the dolphin. And I said, "Well, how is it? Tell me about your relationship to your environment." And he said, "Your question makes no sense to me. I am one with the environment. I'm too aware to have any sense of separation." Now, people who tune into being, the essence of the dolphin consciousness, have remarkable experiences. It's a very individual thing. It's a very subjective thing. Nothing of what I'm telling you is scientific. But it does have individual impact. Again, in group context also, people can have their own individual experience with the dolphin. Now, beyond the dolphin experience, and there are many other stories I can tell you, but I want to, again, leave time for questions and so forth. Beyond the experience of the dolphin, there's the experience of the whales. Now, like many people, I believe that dolphins are emissaries or ambassadors from the sea. But I also believe that they are liaisons between our species and the whales. And I believe it is the whales who are waiting for us with what I call a whaleness. And increasing our whaleness means being open to what the whale connection actually can be, because we have the manipulative capability, and the whales have the awareness that we can use to bring about more positive changes in the planet, to go along with the evolution of consciousness of the earth and so forth and of ourselves. But we are so form-oriented, which itself is a limitation, that we rarely believe that we can learn anything from a whale or a dolphin or another human being. Maybe with a dolphin it's not so bad because they're more similar to us in size. But when you think in terms of a whale, now the whale energy that's come through in various trance processes is reasonably different from the dolphin energy. I cannot describe the difference, but I know that Percy, as an example, relates personally to people. He connects very much, very meaningfully on a one-to-one, and he's very good at what he does. The whale energy is somehow literally, virtually larger in scope. It's more encompassing, it's more ecological, it's more environmentally oriented. So it's got a heavier understanding to it. But the point is, cetaceans are really waiting for us. After all, there's no limitation of consciousness except our limiting conscious beliefs. So the more we open to this energy, the more will be made available to us. And this can easily be seen in essentially any dolphin connection that happens, where a person who may be blocked in the process will let go and do what I may suggest, that is to imagine what it would be like if you were actually in the water with the dolphin and it was happening, pretending that it were happening. Even if it seems like fantasy, accept that as the reality. Now, when people will do that and give themselves permission to process the material, even though it seems they're making it up, the experience will take off on its own. It's not just in the dolphin contact, it's in the past life regression, it's whatever you're doing as far as processing inner material. If you aren't locked into needing to see the impressions, as some people do not see pictures, many people, even professional clairvoyants by definition, they see clearly, but not all of them see. They get impressions. They've learned to trust their feelings. If you trust what you sense and what you seem to be experiencing, that's often good enough to open up those inner doorways and windows so that you have your full experience. Again, it takes belief. It takes working with the imagination. All right, now I've given enough for the moment. I want to open up to any questions that you may have, any ancillary aspects of human-dolphin connections we can talk about. I'm sure there are connections. Please come up to the microphone center and audience left, stage right, and ask whatever you want. I encourage questions for two reasons. Number one, I claim to be an expert on absolutely nothing. And number two, I'm not afraid to say I don't know. So let's see what we can generate.
Does Percy ever not feel like doing this with you?
I've learned many lessons from Percy. One is to not take responsibility for people getting it, for people recognizing the value of something. Percy is very loving, very caring, very aware, very present. He is willing to work with people to the maximum degree, and that's basically the limitations that people have when they come into the experience. Sometimes Percy will continue the connection with people. I'll say it the other way. After we work together, sometimes people will continue their own connection with Percy. That's actually encouraged in the process, that they realize the dolphin awareness is available for them. If they choose to do that, they can go much further and deeper in the experience. So Percy does care, it seems, to work with people, and yet he's very okay when people just don't have that openness for the process. It's like he's available and it's fine if people are interested. If they're not interested, he's available and he's fine.
Thank you. I'm already in love with Percy. Wanted to ask if Percy has any tolerance for snorkelers, or do you have to be a scuba diver to play with him?
Neither. You don't have the limitations in consciousness that you do in physical reality. No one needs to physically go to where Percy is. Percy hasn't been spotted off the coast of England for years now. Again, it was 1984 that I swam with him. He may not even be in the body physically anymore. It matters not. Consciousness has no such limitation. So his connection with people continues. So people's adventures with him are wherever and whenever. Done.
Have you observed any musical connection with the dolphins? In other words, what we would call a continuum of tones in a musical fashion?
The answer to the question is no, I have not. And of course, there are many people who are working, not many, but some people who are working with music and dolphin awareness. One of the major ones is Jim Nolman, who's worked with orcas and dolphins and has written fairly extensively about that. But in my own experience, I have not, no. Sometimes when I'm in a boat with somebody who's connecting with a dolphin, there might be a flute or something like that. It's hard to say whether there's a connection with the music. Sometimes people have chimes that they take underwater or things that make sounds and they feel it attracts the dolphin. I honestly believe it's what you are radiating out. Many stories indicate where people are in trouble or interested in connecting with dolphins. They send out the message and they're there. We all have read or heard of stories such as this. So something else beyond what we would understand easily from our limited awareness is going on. Parker.
I was wondering if you would speak to your personal experience since you physically swum with dolphins, rather than facilitating other people's experiences. Have you used this connection to expand your own, for lack of a better term, spiritual life?
The answer to the question is yes, very definitely. And I'm continuing to learn how to do that more. I never do a session with anyone where I don't learn something. I don't say that naively or in a way that I'm underrating my own abilities, whatever brought into a process. But Percy continues to be a teacher. I say we're partners, but we are working together, but I'm learning a lot from him. and mostly with the sessions I do with other people, and yet on my own, in my own way. Right now, Percy's energy is here. It's not just me speaking. I'm not taking responsibility for what he's saying, but I know that I'm not up here alone saying whatever I'm saying to you, dear people. So the contribution of Percy's experience is evident in my life. I cannot delineate it, but it's there. And it's not just Percy. I mean, sometimes people will connect with Percy in a process, and they'll have a different name for him, or they'll have a different sex. They'll say she, and that's fine. Percy doesn't care. The name is not of consequence. And there's speculations as to why Percy's in a dolphin body. Well, maybe if he were in a human body, people wouldn't take as much notice. I don't know. After all, how many dolphins will talk to you in trance? Well, actually, many. All we have to do is be open to it. So I continue to grow, Parker, and I'm very appreciative of it. And I eventually feel my experience with Percy will extend itself into more physical contact, although it hasn't happened for a while, and I'm very okay with it. As an example, I visited each of the places down in the Florida Keys where people can swim with dolphins. Now, these are not wild dolphins, although there is a degree of liberality with them, I'll say. It's indicated that they can come and go, although I'm not so sure about that. But still, they are dolphins, and people can have contact. I did not swim with the dolphins there, but I was interested in seeing the setup and so on. And I think it's very reasonable for people who want to connect with dolphins to go into the water with them, to do something like that. And yet there are still places. In fact, there's a dolphin right now at the coast of Ireland, southwest coast of Ireland, where Ryan's Daughter was filmed, a town called Dingle. The dolphin is there now. Anyone can go and swim with them. So I continue in that area of growth, and I appreciate your asking the question. It's encouraging me to learn even more, believe it or not. Young man.
Yes, at the beginning of your lecture, you brought up a point where the dolphin touched you in selected spots on your body, but you never alluded to what that meant to you.
I don't know what it means, quite honestly, because I don't remember exactly where the dolphin touched me. But I've learned in subsequent sessions with people that whatever a dolphin does, it has significance. The significance generally comes through in the process. For instance, sometimes a person will say when they're in the connection with Percy, well, he's just swimming around. Well, I've learned if he's just swimming around, he's waiting for the person to open up more and more so that Percy can actually come through with more meaningful material. He has remarkably consistent teachings, such as he will tell people to trust the experience that they're having at the moment so that he can provide them with all that there is available. He will tell people to not take themselves too seriously. That's a major thing that comes through with many people, because we do take ourselves too seriously. This doesn't mean what we're doing is not serious, but when we take ourselves seriously, it's a difference. So if Percy will touch a person in a certain way in the trance process, I'll say, well, where is he touching you? Okay, how is he touching you? Okay, and sometimes it'll actually mean that a condition is going on there. Now, an example from physical reality, which comes from some reading I had done, I did not experience this directly. A woman was swimming with a dolphin in a dolphinarium that she knew the dolphin, had swum with him a number of times, and all of a sudden he turned on her and rammed her, causing her intense pain, to the point she had to leave the pool. She went to the hospital and was x-rayed. Behind where the x-ray was, or where the x-ray was, there was a tumor. Now, you suppose that the dolphin saw this, said, hey, she needs an x-ray, says, I'm going to get it. And that's possible. There are many explanations for it. But again, the dolphin seems to do something with intentionality. That's what I've come to learn and trust. So when there's something going on, I'll look into, well, what is actually going on by asking more questions. After a while, it's very easy for me. Once the connections are made, if the person is open, I'm simply asking more questions for the person to go further and deeper, to open up more material.
Yes, I had a similar question to the previous gentleman there about, we're having a discussion on the internet about conscious connection with dolphins in the higher meditative forms, and I wondered if you could kind of characterize your experience in using higher forms of meditation and achieving sort of theta activity, and whether you received things like holoforms from dolphins, pictures, mind pictures in these type of states, and do you feel that you have to be in a close proximity to the dolphin for that, or can you get in contact with Percy like anywhere in the world in this type of conscious connection?
Thank you. Again, there doesn't seem to be any limitation in this regard as far as proximity. One doesn't need to be near Percy or near any dolphin to have an experience like this. If one is open in consciousness, it can happen. No holographic images have come through to me personally from dolphins. There are all kinds of theories that dolphins do work holographically. In addition to telepathically, there are numerous stories I can tell you about their apparent telepathic ability. Higher meditative states, deeper meditative states, even light meditative states, even consciously, not just getting down to the theta states or the dream states, but just alpha states or even light beta states. People can tap into dolphin awareness. Right now, with your eyes open, you can visualize a dolphin. What you're doing is inviting that dolphin energy into your experience. Now, an example of this is a man in Russia, Igor Chicharsky. A number of you have surely heard of him. He's interested in water births, has been doing it for years. And in the summers, when the weather's good, he likes to take people down to the Black Sea, where the mothers who are about to give birth can give birth in the water with dolphins present, dolphins serving as midwives. A number of people are doing this around the world. But when he's not able to connect the dolphins physically with the mothers-to-be, he will suggest to the mothers in a bathtub or wherever they are that they are imagining being in the water with the dolphins. That invites the dolphin energy into their experience. It's the same thing that I do. In the sense of imagining being with the dolphin, you invite their consciousness into your process. It's really that simple. I cannot say too much about how it's actually happening, what depths or whatever. I know that obviously the deeper you go into the experience, often the more beneficial the process is for you, because you're more accepting of it, more open to process the material. But a person, eyes open, can have a very profound experience in consciousness also. There isn't that limitation unless one believes in it. Okay? Young lady.
Could you comment on this? I have a girlfriend who was actually studying the dolphins, swimming with them. She's a Lakota Nation, Native American, and she made the comment that as soon as we learn how to breathe properly and how we will learn, the dolphin is going to teach us how to breathe, then there is going to be harmony on this planet Earth.
The only comment I can make is that what you say resonates with what I've come in contact with. As far as dolphin connections with people, there seems to be something with the breath which is at the moment beyond my conscious understanding. But on occasion, dolphins have taken people down, even in a dolphinarium. I've swum with some dolphins in dolphinariums in Germany where I got to know the trainers. Even in a so-called captive situation, and people are held down longer than they believe that they should stay down there. The impression comes from the dolphin that has on occasion that you can indeed stay longer than you believe. Now there's this dolphin reflex where people can spontaneously stay down much longer than they normally would. But that's talking about duration of breath. I think you're talking about something much more powerful and encompassing and awesome from a spiritual point of view. How we breathe, I think, is very meaningful as far as our spiritual development. It's a key to not only inner stillness and balance, but about many things related to health and not just of the body. But there's too much to know about it for me to say anything of great value for it, because I'm still learning in that regard. There's much more available to us in that situation, and maybe your friend might have more to share down the road with it. Young man.
Thank you. You have a very pleasant voice.
Thank you. It's in repair, actually. It's recuperating, as I said.
Melodic. My questions deal with some research done in the 70s, I believe, by a woman named Lilly. Are you familiar
Tony,
with her?
wife of John Lilly?
Yes.
Yeah.
She had some interesting research data that, as you remember, probably she had a relationship with a male dolphin. I won't go in too far on how far this relationship went, but the point is that when the relationship ended, this dolphin committed suicide. And it seems that they have more consciousness about relationships than many human beings do in the seriousness of exchanges of consciousness. And I wonder if you, when you were touched by your consciousness with this particular dolphin, if you got a sense of well-being or love or affection. And also, does Percy's go by other names than just that?
Sure. Percy has any number of names. Again, the names are not of consequence. It's simply a name that either the fisherman with him or the scientist studying him had given him, depending on what source you're looking at in that regard. So the name is not important. Again, Percy relates personally to people. Maybe there's a connection there, I don't know. A sense of love, well-being, and goodness and so forth is definitely a part of the dolphin experience. It has been in all of my dolphin encounters in the wild except one. That was with a female dolphin off the coast of France who was particularly attuned to female swimmers and was not so open to male contact. I could only from above lay a foot gently on her back as she was below me. Other than that, there's no touching. Every other dolphin I've been with in the wild, there has been touch. So again, it's a very individual thing. Is this answering your question?
Well, would you continue on the relationship balance and why this dolphin possibly committed suicide in the relationship?
Yeah, I can't do anything other than speculate. I believe that dolphins are certainly more heart-centered than we are. Their relationships are, it seems to be very complex. They don't have the monogamous nature as we pretend to have. Our ways of being, of course, are very different. They are very open in their sexual expression, not only dolphins but whales. And I believe that while we create our own reality, the dolphins, even having larger brains than we do, they create their reality more consciously. I'm going to take an opportunity here to get into another area, a little bit further beyond what you asked. It relates to dolphins in captivity. Many of my dolphinatic friends are against dolphins in captivity, and I can support that when they're treated unkindly, without love and caring, and so forth. And I've visited many, many dolphinariums, mostly in Europe, but also here. And sometimes the curators or trainers are very attuned to the dolphins and care, and it's a fine relationship, it seems. It doesn't mean the dolphins don't have problems. Of course, they're out of their natural element and so forth. But I've hardly seen an unsmiling face on a human in a dolphinarium. They have that way of just generating an energy of levity, what I call Leviathanian energy, because dolphins are small toothed whales, just as toothed whales are large dolphins. So that energy is very captivating, and I think that those dolphins in captivity have chosen, on some level, to be there as service, to provide that contact for people who generally would not have it. Most people don't go out in sailboats and see them and touch them as I have in the Mediterranean. They don't have the opportunity to swim with them or live near the sea and can see them from shore. So for most people, the connection is either through the media or in places like dolphinariums. Now, I was a little bit ambivalent about this some years ago until one of the early Percy sessions, actually, with a trained psychic who tuned into a dolphin called Arnold, who, and I'm going to do this officially because it's a good quote that came through, a dolphin called Arnold who had exposure to her when she was 9 years of age. And she had the feeling when she was seeing him in a holding tank that he was very lonely and frightened, and it was a pitiful thing that he was captive. And Arnold, when we went back to that experience in the trance, she was at the time in her 30s, but we went back to it when she was 9, and she was given the suggestion that she was in telepathic contact with Arnold and was able to receive what he was saying. Arnold said to her in the trance, to this little 9-year-old girl, "Go within yourself, and you will find where I dwell. The limitations you perceive around you are your own. I fly freely. I swim free in all the oceans of the world. I'm not trapped in my body, and neither are you. Come, swim with me. Come experience the joy. We leave your planet if you wish. Leave your body. Leave your life. You can always return. Travel with the joy." Now that said to me a whole lot about, again, the sacrifice that some dolphins make to be in a captive situation. They choose their relationships just as we choose ours. This is my belief system. And they, quote unquote, suffer the consequences of them. Again, it's a reaction. Like anything else, it's not what you experience, it's how you respond to it. And in a captive situation, the dolphin may have very different responses than he or she would in an open situation. It can be very difficult. After all, they are in physical reality as we are. Answer your question a little bit more? Okay, thank you. Young man.
Yes. Could you speak on dolphins and whales beaching themselves?
Oh boy, that's a good one. There are a lot of things I could say about that. And I can't say that anything I would tell you would be different from what you've already heard and read. So I don't really have very many new things to say. Other than there may be a factor of balance with what we're doing with destroying ourselves. They may be demonstrating some type of balance, destruction of themselves to compensate. I cannot say much more about that. It's something that's come through in a process of meaning some time ago. I've not been able to put it together. There are all kinds of scientific explanations as to what's happening. I tend to believe that may be a factor, but I think there's more going on. So I cannot give you an explicit, definitive answer as to why this occurs. But I believe it's a higher nature or reason for it than what we tend to accept.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other last-minute questions? We're almost at the end.
Yes, there was a seminar given by, I believe his name is Melchizedek, and the subject of dolphins came up in relation to their origin. And
relate to abortions?
To their origin.
Their origins.
It was said that they were from Sirius and that they had come to help humankind in some way in their evolution, and I just wondered if you could comment on that.
Yeah, I think it's great the number of people who are doing work with dolphins and dolphin consciousness, channeling through dolphin and whale energy, the theories of their origins of other star systems that are being messengers of human consciousness and the planet and so forth. All these are very meaningful for us to open up our understanding as to what we may really be dealing with here. I do not have an explanation as to what's really going on. I believe from a number of sessions that I've worked with, there are definitive connections with dolphins, Atlantis, crystals, and some type of metamorphoses that occurred back in those days when there was much more flexibility for souls to choose a dolphin body or a human body, which from its own experience can extend our understanding of brotherhood and kinship. So that's an explanation as to why we have these connections. But their origins, what are our origins? Wonderful theories and thoughts about it, and I accept them all as being possible. Okay, I think that's about it time-wise. I appreciate your attention, and I leave you with the encouragement that very simply Percy is waiting for you. Anyone on your own can connect with him. I'm doing a workshop on Monday afternoon. I'm not saying you need the workshop to connect with him. Not only is Percy waiting for you, cetacean consciousness is waiting for you. And it can be a joyful, wonderful, enlivening experience. And I'm open for contact with anybody who wants to chat about this sort of thing later. I'm interested in exchanging dolphin tales. And I thank you for your attention and your invitation.
How many of you kind of felt like you had an experience with a dolphin while you were listening to him?
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks very much, Steve. We appreciate it.